At a showing of The Lion King on Broadway, Usher ushers people back to their seats in order to get them seated before the intermission ends. He then announces to the audience that there will be a young, overweight to obese, homosexual and or gay and or queer, cisgender male, able-bodied, university and graduate school educated, musical theater writing, Disney ushering, broke, middle class, far left-leaning, black identified and classified American descendant of slaves, full of self-conscious feminine energy and who thinks he's probably a verse bottom, but not totally certain of that, obsessing over the latest draft of his self-referential musical. From there, the show goes on, and Usher begins to hear voices in his head, saying his name over and over again as the show starts back up. Usher, 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 they repeat again and again. When he shakes the voices off, he decides that the main character of his show, Usher, should get an early dismissal from his shift supervisor, allowing him to go home and work on his show. As he heads home, he tells himself today is the day that he won't make any compromises about his work. He won't change his show in any way. He's going to write it exactly how he knows it should be. After stopping by to talk to his landlord, Usher sits down with his thoughts, wrestling with a blank page. What should his musical be about? Right as he gets to work, his phone rings. He answers it to find his mother on the other end. She tells him that there's a rumor going around that Usher touched his niece Nalia inappropriately. Now, his mother says that she knows that the rumor is ridiculous and untrue, but at the same time, she says that rumors like that are what prevent her from losing weight because she always goes straight to Popeyes and eats an entire bucket after she deals with them. Usher is only half listening to his mother, wondering if she'll ever get to the point. Finally, she changes the subject, but Usher isn't really much more thrilled with this conversation than the last one. His mother says to him that we want to know, referring to her and his father, about his life in New York and if he's truly living in his purpose that God has for him, which in turn makes him start to doubt his dreams. Usher becomes annoyed, but he stays polite, allowing his mother to say her piece, hoping she'll end the conversation soon. Then she drops the bomb. She tells him that she has an idea. He should write a Tyler Perry-style gospel play, to honor the Lord. His mother is a Tyler Perry fan, and she tells him it would be better for him to use his craft to work for the Lord instead of living this heathenistic lifestyle, accusing her of not loving the Lord or her. At this point, Usher hangs up the phone. He's done. He begins to talk to himself about how he wishes he could just let his inner white girl out and how he wants black boys to be able to have all the white girl traits without being judged. It is then that he's contacted by who he calls the Guardians of Musical Theater Centrism, who begin to criticize his writing and his story. They tell him that he needs to make his characters a little more screwable, and that his musical should be about slavery or police violence, so it feels more intersectional. When he's done with all this, Usher realizes that he's missed a call from his father, so he picks up his phone, he checks his messages, and Usher listens to his father's message. His father begins speaking, and he's like, well, and tells him he don't want nothing, but he does try to encourage Usher in a sense, telling him that he should reach out to Scott Rudin. Apparently, his father had tracked the actor's contact info down and thought that him and Usher could connect because of their similar sexual preferences. At this point, Usher is annoyed and tired of his parents intervening in his life. It seemed obvious to him that neither of them really took him or his work seriously. Usher lets this go and he moves on. He's trying to write his story, but imposter syndrome keeps on coming back. Usher stands up, declaring that he just needs to release his inner white girl and be free. When he tries, he's too scared and he holds himself back, feeling trapped by the daily expectations put on black boys. So with that, Usher sits back down. Should he change his story? Maybe the main character does need more sex appeal. It would be a woman, of course. Maybe he should just scrap his play altogether. To get his mind together, Usher goes to see his doctor. Usher sits across from his physician. The doctor casually asks about Usher's sex life, who uncomfortably admits that he doesn't really get much play, so his bedroom is pretty dry. His doctor's advice to him is to actually have more sex, since he isn't getting any, and then he provides him some Truvada as a preventative measure. Usher immediately downloads a bunch of dating apps to try to spice up his dating life. He starts reaching out to men here and there, and after a while, he still hasn't been able to find a match. So he tries to channel his confident inner white girl again as he chats with various men on the internet. He faces rejection after rejection, getting excuses like he's black, he's fat, or his is too small, and he feels like an exile in Gayville. He complains that everyone in the community is way too focused on physical appearance, and no one wants him because he's fat and black. As Usher begins to reach the end of his rope and starts to crash out, he meets a man on a train who's reading a smart book. The man looks over Usher's shoulder, asking him about the story he's writing, to which Usher explains that it's a cognitive science term about how the sense of self is kind of an illusion, and the ability to recognize the illusion proves your existence. But it's also a Liz Phair song, and he's a fan of Liz Phair. The two begin flirting, and Usher learns that his name is Jocelyn. Jocelyn turns out to be the white man of Usher's dreams. And while Usher tells Jocelyn his life story, we get clued into what Usher's ideal man looks like. Then Jocelyn suddenly utters Usher Popeye's chicken that he excremented in, and then runs off with another man. It turns out in the end of it all, Jocelyn was never real. He was just a figment of Usher's imagination. And he thinks about his inner second wave feminist side fighting with his outer black male side to get out. As Usher continues to spiral, he gets a call from his agent. His agent gets on the phone and he tells him that he has an opportunity for him. Tyler Perry is looking for a ghostwriter. Now, Usher is excited about this opportunity, hesitantly, because he's also kind of conflicted. Unlike his mother, who thinks Tyler Perry writes real life, he is not a fan of Tyler Perry's work. Suddenly, as Usher sits there, thinking, he sees multiple prominent figures appear in front of him. Harriet Tubman, Carter G. Woodson, James Baldwin, Zora Neale Hurston, Whitney Houston, all appear in his room. They begin getting on him and talking about how he's a nobody and he'll never be anyone, and that he hates on Tyler Perry, but at least Tyler Perry is doing things for black people, giving them money and jobs, instead of being out there being a coon. But Usher's still debating if writing a gospel play is for him. Then all people vanish. Defeated, Usher drags himself to work the next day. Someone at the show suddenly just stops him and asks him, "Hey, how long until intermission?" He looks at them and explains the musical he's writing to them. How he has a bit of writer's block, how he can't figure out what to do next, about how the main character should share his artistic dreams with his parents. He's afraid that writing something too confrontational will affect his real life, and not in a good way. While the patron lends him a sympathetic ear, he continues to talk about all these fears he has in his writing, and the patron tells him, "Well, why don't you just live and you write truthfully and without fear?" And Usher is suddenly inspired. He calls his house, his dad picks up, and then he starts asking him about his personal life. And then, because of the life he lives, he asks him, "Hey, do you have HIV? Because if you do, you're like your friend Darnell that we decided just doesn't matter anymore because of the life he lives." Usher tells him, "Why don't you just stop bringing that up and listen to me?" But then the rest of Usher's family ends up on the line with his dad while he's trying to argue with him. And, well, he gets all the latest news on the family drama while also being part of the family drama. His mother interrupts everyone and asks him where the gospel play is. But Usher hangs up, invaded by his thoughts again. Then he goes out to make himself feel better, and he has a one-night stand with the man he calls his Inglewood daddy. After his one-night stand, he wakes up the next morning and he does his walk of shame home, feeling pretty bad about it. When he checks his phone, he looks, and he sees that he has his annual birthday message from his parents. His mother tells him how much she loves him, and She's amazed at how he turned 26 years old on the 26th of the month. She tells him that, however, what he's doing is wrong and a sin according to what they believe, and that if he doesn't fix it, well, he won't get to see them when it's all said and done. After Usher finishes listening to this voicemail, he begins to have these thoughts creep in again, where he starts the process of self-loathing and fights his inner demons. He reaches for his phone and he gets a call. It's his father again. Usher listens. His mother and father fight with him and each other about his lifestyle and his hopes and his dreams, and they're scared that if he doesn't change, he's going to be punished, and his punishment will be that he'll have AIDS, just like what happened to Darnell. Finally, his father breaks through the noise, and he asks Usher, he's like, well, what do you want from me? And Usher pauses, and he speaks into the phone, and he's just like, all I want is for you to like what I'm working on, to see my shows, to support me, to care about the fact that I'm a complex person. I'm not one-dimensional. And his father tells him, well, he doesn't care about all that. He doesn't care that he's complex. And that causes his father and his mother to get into another shouting match with each other, causing his father to walk out. Once his father is gone, Usher's mother gets back on the phone with him, and she asks him why he hates them so much and why she wrote them like this. Usher says that I wrote them like that not because I hate you, because I love you. And as he turns to go, his mother steps forward and says, do you really want to end this like this, with these hateful caricatures of your parents? Usher looks at her and says, well, they aren't caricatures. They are real complex depictions of him and what life was like for him with them when he was 17. Then she says to him, well, you're not 17 anymore. You're 26, which makes Usher think about what to do next. He realizes now that maybe because he's older, his perception of his parents should change. And as he thinks about it and he goes through his relationship with his parents over the last almost 10 years, he says he ends up being like, well, change is just an illusion because things haven't changed much. And his thoughts echo just an illusion, building up and stirring up to the final moment of a strange loop. He realized that he didn't need to change and that being himself was the most beautiful story of all. A Strange Loop was written by Obie Award winner, Drama Desk Award winner, Jonathan Larson Grant Award winner, Michael R. Jackson. It's a semi-autobiographical musical about Usher, a Black queer writer working as a Broadway usher, attempting to write a musical about his life that explores identity, race, and sexuality, and universal human fears, while also addressing topics like racism, homophobia, depression, and suicidal thoughts. A Strange Loop began previews at the off-Broadway venue Playwrights Horizons on May 24, 2019. The Broadway production was announced December 20th, 2021, and previews were scheduled for April 6th, but were postponed due to COVID and COVID breakouts among the cast. And so it ended up being April 15th instead, and the show officially opened on Broadway on April 26, 2022. And in April of 22, it won a Tony Award for Best Musical. As one of its producers, this was actually the play that gave Jennifer Hudson the status of being the second Black woman to receive EGOT status. And that is A Strange Loop, celebrating Pride Month. And so if you'd like to know a little bit more about theater and plays, you can click on the playlist Theater Files over here, or there will be a video on the other side that has been suggested to you specifically from YouTube that you might like. And until next time, yeah, that's it.